So we were approached by Head Interiors to create this sculpture for the new Group 5 building in the atrium. And we were really excited about the brief from the word go. And the reason is, Lemon is a multidisciplinary design company. And what that really means is that we get bored easily. We like to challenge ourselves, we like to try new things, and we like to blur the lines between interior, graphic design, and architecture, engineering, and we like to try and pull all these things together. And we thought that was quite exciting. So we immediately got to researching what we wanted to achieve for the sculpture. And in our research process, we found something quite interesting. We looked at how it's normally done. And how it's normally done is the customer approaches an artist and says, I have this much money to spend and I want to create an art piece that depicts the values of my brand and my message and our values. What will happen is the artist will come back in a few months and show you some conceptual sketches, really showing you what he wants to achieve. And the next thing you know, you see the sculpture hanging in your atrium or suspended or installed onto your wall. And we thought that might be quite a scary process. If I was a customer, I would feel if I was spending this kind of money, that can be a bit scary because I don't really have any sort of view into the process. And not to knock artists, because that does work very well if you choose the right artist, but he may miss or you may not get exactly what you wanted. So we thought, well, how can we collaborate with everyone and work with everyone to create a sculpture that is essentially the customer sculpture, not our sculpture. So we worked, as I said, with Head Interiors, we worked with Light, we worked with Tim White, we worked with all our other vendors and a whole bunch of other suppliers, but most importantly, we worked with you, Group 5, the customer. And how we see that working is, you're the MD of Group 5, a customer comes to your reception, you walk down and you welcome the customer to your building, and hopefully the customer looks up at this beautiful piece of art and you have the opportunity to talk through the piece of art. But more importantly than that, you have the opportunity to talk about, oh, well, I changed that from white to black and I didn't think it should be 3 meters and I wanted that shard there, and it becomes your piece of art. We just enable that. We just help you create that. And we like that. We like that it's not about our ego and our creating our value and our art over time. Because really the first rule in art is buy something you love. The whole appreciation and value aspect is a whole different conversation. And I think that's what's made this such an interesting process, the ability for everyone, at all the parties, to collaborate, and we've created this a collective effort. And what is so interesting about this collective effort is it's the same as the sculpture. It's a collective effort of pieces all working together to create something beautiful.
So initially we got an open brief from Group 5 to design an art installation for the new offices in Waterfront Estate. So we started researching what has been done previously to gain inspiration from that. And we started with our first proposal. We put together a selection of contemporary works we thought were relevant for them, and also to give us direction where to work from. Our first initial ideas were about construction and the repurposing of building materials. So after our meeting with Group 5, we were informed that construction is only a small part of what they do. They want the art piece to embody structural ingenuity, which is the key message. We decided to visit the site just to get a feel of the space. And then we went back and brainstormed a hanging installation. We wanted this large-scale, impactful art piece to be beautiful, but also to sort of embody that whole ethos. After our meeting with Group 5, they gave us valuable feedback. They wanted the art piece to enhance the space. They didn't want it to obstruct it. We wanted the sculpture to have an industrial feel. And after our meeting with Group 5, we were informed that it's something that they experience on a daily basis. So they want the sculpture to be more refined and conceptually strong. So originally we wanted the piece to be black, but after visiting the space, we thought an off-white light color will work best. It's going to work with the space, enhance it. Having light on an art piece is really important to highlight the piece, but also to throw that beautiful shadow on the ground. This becomes part of the work and also gives a different dimension to it. So originally, we wanted the piece to be in the middle of the atrium area, but we decided it will work best to move it to the concrete slab close to the entrance. So just structurally, it's going to be better to hang it from underneath the concrete. And also we won't be obscuring the light coming from the glass ceiling.
Structurally, the artworks are a visual metaphor for Group 5. The rods make up Group 5 and all its elements, and the nodes represent its members. So using the rod and connecting that to the node, and then connecting that again to another rod, and repeating that process builds the structure, and that represents the collaboration that happens within the company and how that then builds the stable structure. So the form starts off chaotic and deconstructed and then assembles itself into an ordered structure. So we've come up with 2 strong ideas that we're happy with, and we've titled each one. The first one is Symphony and the second one is Ratio. So in the case of Symphony, the chaotic structure starts at the bottom, closer to the ground, and then that slowly develops into a more ordered form and into this spiral. And the spiral represents the progression of Group 5, and that reaches out into the ceiling and into the light. So in the case of Ratio, the deconstruction and the chaos starts closer up to the ceiling and envelopes into the space and starts developing into the perfect golden ratio. And that point is just high enough for someone to stand underneath it and have a sense of the magnitude of the structure and how it develops into this form.
The sculpture's dimensions are about 8.5 meters long, 6.5 meters across and 4.5 meters high. And you're looking at about 500 running meters of tubing, or half a kilometer, with 300 steel nodes or joints that connect all those rods together. The sculpture will weigh about half a ton, depending on the material option that we go through, either an aluminium or a mild steel option. The connection options that we're looking at, there's a choice of 3 that we're investigating. The first one is what's called an M12 system from Germany, which is basically a ball and tube system. The balls have threaded rods in them, and the tube has a threaded bar, and you screw the threaded tube onto the ball. Each ball has about 18 different holes in them, so it's a very flexible system. It's easy to change and manipulate either off-site or on-site, and if you want to change it in 5 years' time, you have that flexibility. The second system is similar in its flexibility, where we're using 32mm aluminium tubes, which are attached using a swivel coupler. The third option is a fixed solution, which is using a mild steel ball and a square tubing, and the square tubing is welded onto the ball. So you can't move it or change it or rotate it on site. It's fixed. Which leads to a more kind of a permanent solution. To create the model for a 3D print, you have to have a digital 3D drawing, something that you can rotate and turn around on your computer. From there, that drawing is sent through to the 3D printer, which then prints out that object. Now, the way the 3D printer works is that if you imagine a block of plastic powder, and that powder you can't compress it. And so you take that powder and you put it into the 3D printer, and you take 2 lasers, and where those lasers meet, it causes a hot spot. And that hot spot fuses the powder together. And so the laser now goes and draws this object out to the 0.1 millimeters of an accuracy, and because of it's drawing this in the powder suspending this object, and once you remove the object from the printer, all the loose powder falls away, and what's remaining is the fused together object, which can only really be done using laser sintering as a printing method, due to the complexity of the object. The sculpture itself comes together from the factory, where it is just about the whole thing is made up in large components. The sculpture is too big to bring through on one truck, so these large components are assembled, put together on a truck, brought to site, where scaffolding and cherry pickers are used to pick up these components into the air, and they are attached to stainless steel cables which are either drilled into the concrete soffit above or hooked onto a Mentis grating, which is kind of acting as a frame. Once all these components are suspended in air, they are then attached together, either using the M12 or swivel coupler method, or welded using the square mile tubing ball method, and it's then suspended in space. The last thing to happen on the sculpture is the lighting. So once the sculpture is lifted and up and hanging in situ, we start playing around with the lighting, which lights up the sculpture and highlights areas of densification, or it creates play and movement within the sculpture itself. And added to that, they will have a couple of spotlights which shine through the rods and the intricacies to cause a shadow effect on the ground.